Welcome, I'm Jordan, and this is The Analytic Christian, the channel that helps you explore Christian philosophy and theology. Today we're going to be asking if theology ends up just being a bunch of speculation. My guest is Dr. Ryan Mullins. I've had him on a couple of times before, so we're not going to get into his background. We're just going to jump right into the question. Hey there, Dr. Mullins.
Hey.
All right, so let me read the question and then you go ahead and give me your answer. Is most theology pure speculation? When we engage in debates on various issues, such as the free will defense against the argument from evil, the possible reasons behind divine hiddenness, or if God can change his mind, all of this is extra biblical. The Bible is kind of thin when it comes to a lot of theological questions. It's got the basics covered, but beyond that, we're on our own. If the canon is closed, and we can't expect further revelation, is such speculation ultimately pointless, since we'll never get answers in this life? All right. What are your thoughts?
So there's several things going on here, and I'll just try to break it down one by one. So basically, I guess there's like two kind of questions that I'm seeing here, which is theology pure speculation, and is this speculation ultimately pointless? So let me address the question about speculation first. So I think we can draw a rough distinction between something called grounded speculation and wild speculation. And grounded speculation is when we theorize about some aspect of reality, and our theorizing is based on our experience with that aspect of reality. And so our theorizing is going to be grounded in something that we can experience and have intuitions about, and it's guided by different rules of inference and methods that we can use to like test those different theories. So for example, when we look at disciplines such as biology and history, what we're doing is we're dealing with different things that in reality that we actually experience. And then each discipline's like they've developed different kinds of rules for inference and different methods for testing those theories. So someone who's skilled in these different disciplines, what they can do is they can figure out how someone else moved from a starting point to some particular conclusion. So it's going to be speculation, but it's grounded in our experience of reality, and it's guided by certain patterns of rational thinking.
That's a really helpful distinction.
Yeah, and so let me say something about wild speculation then, so we can really kind of understand this here. So wild speculation, like our theorizing is like only loosely grounded in our experiences and intuitions, and it doesn't follow any obvious rules of inference, nor any clear methods for testing our theories. So for example, when you think about like conspiracy theories, like these are usually engaged in wild speculation because they're barely grounded in our experiences and intuitions, and it's nearly impossible to figure out how someone makes the leap from some starting point to their conclusion. So in other words, like it's speculation, but it seems kind of counterintuitive and is not guided by any clear patterns of rational thinking.
Yeah, that makes good sense.
Yeah, good. So when I think about this first question, what kind of speculation is going on in theology, I think is what we should answer here. And well, to be fair, I have encountered lots of theologians who are engaged in wild speculation. Like I've personally witnessed some like really wild statements from theologians. But I think that the best kind of theology is engaged in grounded speculation. So when I look at the history of Christian thought, I think there's various rational patterns of thinking that have guided theologians to make inferences from scripture, experience, and reason. And these different patterns of thinking, these like different methods, they're things that we can test in various ways. So for example, in philosophical theology, we have something called perfect being theology. And this has guided theologians in their thinking about God's essential nature. And so we can test these intuitions about God's perfect nature by examining different value judgments, see if they're coherent, and see how they fit with the biblical witness. And then we also have other methods that we, within like biblical interpretation, in order to kind of discern like the different books of the Bible and what they're saying, what they're trying to teach. And there's lots of other methods that theologians use, but people who do systematic theology, what they're trying to do is they're trying to figure out the results of these different methods and see how they all fit together. And so I think that's what's going on in theology. But
okay.
Yeah, but I guess I should say something though about the fact that when we're doing this in theology, it's fallible. Like we are fallible. Because we are often blinded by our own biases, and we're clearly capable of making lots of wrong value judgments. And we're also clearly capable of failing to follow our own methods like as close as we would like to. But I don't think theology is unique in this regard, because the same is going to be true in disciplines within the sciences and the humanities that are engaged in some kind of grounded speculation. So we're all fallible, and no matter how like good our methods are, we're going to be subject to failure. So that's how I address like at least the first question.
Okay, that makes good sense. So what about that second question?
Yeah, so the second question, though, now is like, well, is this kind of speculation pointless since we're never going to get answers in this life? Well, I guess two thoughts. First is I'm not certain that we will not get answers in this life, and I'm uncertain because it might be that we've found really good answers actually to different like puzzles and problems in theology. And so personally, I think we have made a lot of really good progress when it comes to like what biblical studies and theology have to say in understanding different issues about the nature of God. But imagine, we don't have any good answers at all, or at least we don't have any answers in this life that are going to be satisfying. What would follow from that? I don't think much. So think of it this way. So recall that theology is not unique in being a form of grounded speculation that leads to fallible results. And in fact, I think that many forms of grounded speculation confront questions that are going to go like ultimately unanswered in this life. So consider physics, history, and ethics. These disciplines are forms of grounded speculation that confront all sorts of questions that are going to go unanswered in this life. So let's suppose that we're not going to get any answers from our grounded speculations in these fields. Does that mean that all grounded speculation is pointless? I think that proves too much, because humankind's work in physics, history, and ethics, like that would be considered all pointless. But that just doesn't seem right to me. Those engaged in physics, history, and ethics, like they're doing the best they can to understand, the laws of nature, what's happened in the past, and how we ought to live in the here and now. And they're engaged in rational patterns of thinking, and which are fallible, of course. And much of what people in those disciplines do, it does seem like it's going to be ultimately left unanswered in this life. But I just don't see how we can conclude from that physics, history, and ethics is going to be pointless. I think that's a difficult conclusion to get. And I want to say the same thing is true about theology. Theology is a form of grounded speculation, and it's not rendered pointless simply because it confronts questions that may very well go unanswered in this life. Instead, I think that we should see it this way. I would say that the endeavor to understand the world that we are living in is intrinsically valuable. There's something worthwhile in the pursuit of knowledge and wisdom, even though we cannot gain absolute certainty in all areas of inquiry. And this is because the unexamined life is one that is not worth living. And the Bible certainly seems to support this, because it says that the pursuit of knowledge and wisdom is a worthwhile endeavor. So the book of James tells us that if you lack wisdom, you should go to ask God for help. And Proverbs 2 tells us that wisdom comes from God. And then Proverbs 2 goes on to encourage us to seek knowledge and understanding, and that knowledge and understanding are going to be pleasant to our soul. And so again, the unexamined life is not worth living. But Proverbs 4 makes an even stronger claim. It says that you should give everything you have in order to acquire knowledge and understanding. And so when it comes to pursuing knowledge and understanding of God, I can't think of anything that's a more worthwhile endeavor. So even though, the best methods we have for understanding God are fallible, I would say that pursuing knowledge and understanding of God is still a worthwhile endeavor. So even if the best we can do is just get a glimpse of God through a mere dimly, I think that's enough knowledge and understanding to be pleasant to our soul.
That's a really beautiful way of stating it. So I'm glad you said that. I hadn't thought of it quite like that before. So it seems like, to sum up then, that once we have this distinction between grounded and wild speculation, and we're making sure we're trying to keep grounded speculations, that can take care of that first question. And that second question about, well, is it just pointless? There was kind of 2 points you made. One was that kind of question may prove too much. It may end up rendering irrelevant physics and history and other fields. And then the second is there's this kind of intrinsic value to these search for these deep questions, answers to these deep kinds of questions. And so I think all that was really helpful.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. And if you would like to ask a scholar some deep question of your own, you can do that by becoming one of my patrons. You just need to go to www.patreon.com/theanalyticchristian. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.